So welcome everyone. We are happy to have you join us for this AAEP webinar. This webinar is brought to you by the AAEP Foreign Veterinary Graduates Task Force and is entitled Foreign Veterinary Graduates Share Their Successful Pathways to Practicing in the U.S. Our panelist experts on this subject are Drs. Chris Elliott, who is on his way, Javier Pérez Quesada, Santiago Rodriguez, and Amanda Chitero Silva. And Dr. Ernie Martinez will be our moderator. And once we get started, I'll let them introduce themselves further. But before we get started, one more time, that bit of housekeeping. We want interaction from you, so please take advantage of those options. The chat is for doing just that, chatting, but make sure that you look at that to line in the chat and pull down the options and select everyone. And the Q&A box for asking questions that you hope to be addressed by our panelists. And one more time, the Q&A box just makes it easier for us to keep those questions managed and make sure that we're answering them all. Also, a quick note that in the Q&A box, you can ask questions anonymously. This session does not confer any race-accredited CE. And yes, indeed, an on-demand recording of this session will be available. And if you're listening to me now, you'll be getting an email tomorrow with a link to that on-demand recording. A quick shout out to Kevin Hinchman, who's hiding behind the scenes, standing by in case we have any IT difficulties. And with all of that, I think I'm ready to turn things over to Dr. Martinez. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, Karen. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We've got a great webinar topic and a great group of presenters tonight to share their stories with us. So we appreciate you joining us. I'm going to share my screen here quick and kind of kick things off. So tonight we're going to talk about and give some examples and some stories about from some foreign veterinary graduates, and they're going to share with us their successful pathway and how they've come to practice here in the United States. I'm going to go through a little bit of some history with how we got here and what our task force has been doing. So I'm the current chair of the Foreign Veterinary Graduate Task Force, which is made up of this great list of doctors and volunteers that have contributed a lot of hours working on this issue for the AAEP. So just a quick early shout out to Dr. Julie Wilson, Dr. Raul Bras, who's our board liaison, Dr. Carol Clark, Dr. Paul Silva, Dr. Chris Elliott, who's also serving on the panel tonight, and Dr. Luis Morales. These are all practitioners that in some way or another work with and help support foreign veterinary graduates in their practices. And so we were asked at first, kind of our mission to kind of investigate and see what the needs of the membership are, as a lot of membership kind of voiced their concerns or their issues at how they had these great doctors from foreign veterinary schools, and they were looking to see and learn how they could keep them in the United States longer and how they could help support them through the licensing process. So this task force was put together to kind of investigate their needs, the practices in the United States, and investigate their needs as well, and kind of see what the AAEP could do and what our membership needed to address the challenges that our foreign vet graduate members face. So we identified some challenges, and we've been working on some solutions and some recommendations to get to the board. And then to kind of get everybody on the same page, if you're not a foreign veterinary graduate joining us tonight, this is kind of an overview of the process of what a foreign vet grad goes through. So they've graduated from a veterinary school that's non-accredited, and that's outside of the US and outside of AVMA accreditation. And they've found an interest or looked or identified an opportunity in the United States through either an internship program or some other educational program or a potential job that they'd like to come to the United States and gain experience to either potentially go back to their country and practice with their newfound skills, or potentially to explore the options of staying in the United States and working as a practitioner here. And so the first step to that is to get through the visa process, which if you were on our last webinar a month and a half or so ago, we investigated the challenges of the visa process and understanding the different hurdles that you have to go through. We had a great legal team help us kind of talk through some of that, and that's available. The recording's available for you to review. But so once through the visa process, foreign vet grads usually start in kind of a temporary position that's either like educational as an internship or a residency, possibly at a university, or they may just have a seasonal position where they're in a support role in busy hospitals or different clinics around the country. And then at the end of that time, at the end of that position, or at the end of their visa period, they may have to return to their home country. But while they're here, they can take some other options, and they can decide that they'd like to try to get through the testing and get through the licensure process so they could practice in the United States. And they have two pathways: through the ECFVG program conducted by the AVMA, or through the PAVE program controlled by the AAVSB, the American Association of Veterinary State Boards. They're somewhat similar, but have different tests. And that might be a conversation for another webinar, but we've got some resources on our pages that will kind of get you through those if you'd like to explore those more. But once you get through the testing, which is very rigorous and very demanding on the foreign veterinary graduates, then you have to pass the NAVLE and then the state board of where you decide to practice, where you can work in the United States. So as you can see, there's a lot of steps involved. So we're very impressed, and we're very proud of our panelists tonight for getting through this position, getting through these challenges, and successfully practicing and telling us their story a little bit later. Other progress that we've made, our task force has kind of drafted and created some resources that can now be found on the AAEP website. You can scan this QR code or click the link, and I think Karen will put the link in the chat. You can click on that to go right to that to look at later. They just kind of outline the process, and then there's some other links to help you understand visas, the licensure through the different organizations, and then work that we're doing on mentorships and scholarships. And if you scroll down further through those pages, you'll find the recording that we did with the legal team of Mr. and Mr. Krebs to kind of help everybody understand the visa process. And that kind of brings us to where we are tonight. After our last webinar, we had great turnout. We kind of put our heads together and decided, I think we need to share some success stories with our members and with our foreign vet grad members, so people can hear about what people went through and how they were able to get through the challenges of the foreign veterinary graduate route to practicing in the United States. So we've got 4 great speakers tonight. Dr. Elliott will show up here, I'm sure. I'm not worried. And so first, I'd like to introduce Dr. Amanda Silva. She's from Brazil, and she has been a tremendous resource for our task force, as she has to work with Dr. Barras at NC State, and he's picked her brain to kind of give us an inside track on some of this stuff as we worked as a task force. So she's agreed to kind of share her story with us tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to her. Dr. Silva, we'd love to hear what brought you to the United States, and then if you tell us kind of the challenges you faced, maybe some tips for our listeners. So the floor is yours. Thanks for presenting tonight.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm from Brazil. I came to the States to do my final externship when I was finishing vet school. And I fell in love with the way that you guys practice it here and for how much I learned. The biggest challenge for me was the language. Before I came here, I thought I knew English, but once I arrived, I realized that I didn't, and that made my life very, very hard. So if there's one tip I can give to anybody that wants to come here and have a career and enjoy and learn from the opportunity they're having, is that coming knowing English. Because if you don't, you might have a good time, but you're not gonna enjoy as much. I started as an intern at Brazos Valley in Stephenville, extern actually, which is now Signature Hospitals. Then from there, I went to Brazos Valley in Nova Soda, where I was an intern, then back to Stephenville and as an intern again. And finally, I spent my almost 3 years of internship at Women's and Stevens. They are all in Texas. What I wish I would have known before or while I was doing my externship was about my opportunities to grow up as a professional here. I had no idea that I could have a future. I was very raw and just like a student that just got out of school in Brazil, where they don't talk much about opportunities outside there. So I didn't know better, and I could have enjoyed and learned and used my mentors way more if I knew that in advance. That's one tip I give. The other one is about network. Do as much network as you can because it will help you a lot in the future. Everything I had was because of my network and what else? I'm a little lost now.
Sorry, so tell us a little bit about, so you gave us some great resources through the ECFVG program and some of that information. Tell us about
Yeah.
that process for you and how it was, or which way
So
you went, and then how the testing went.
okay, I am going through this ECFVG right now because I didn't have the money to do that before, and when I did have, I could not stay in the US for personal problems. So the ECFVG, the tests, they are very hard. I need to study really hard. I'm studying every day about 6 to 8 hours a day. It's a very expensive test, so because of that, we want to make sure that we are giving our best so we don't waste the opportunity and money. I'm very, very grateful because NC State and Dr. Blixlager, they are giving me the opportunity to do that. So they are backing me up on this, which is great. And being inside of the university is making my life easier to study because I can just step on a small animal practice and see some cases or go to the radiology and see some x-rays and talk to people that are experienced on these things. So that's another way to do this. If you can find a job inside of the university, it will probably make your life easier while studying and applying and testing and everything. I came to the US for the externship on my tourist visa. After that, I got the J1 visa. And after the J1 visa, I went to the H3 visa. And then finally to the green card while I was at Women's and Stevens. And I think that's it regarding ECFVG and my background. I had really great mentors during my pathway here, but there are some that really are really important, and I'm in touch since until now. Dr. Christine Buck from Brazos Valley, now Signature Hospital. She's awesome. She's like a mom to me. Dr. Ben Buchanan, he is always there for me, and I'm very grateful for him. Dr. Cole Skiba from Women's and Stevens that helped me through the green card process and gave me the opportunity to have a way to stay in the US. And of course, Dr. Blixlager that is helping me a lot through the ECFVG process.
That's great. And then what are you teaching now at NC State?
So I am not on a faculty position. I am on the Equine Emergence Field Service. It's a new service here. We work with three different practices in the area as a relief service. We take all their emergencies during the weekdays after 5 p.m. and during the weekends. We do have students that ride with us, so I teach them hands-on in the field. And while we were in the truck, we talk about anything they want, what they are seeing in class or the questions they have about equine. And I learned a lot from that too. It has been an amazing experience, and I'm nothing but grateful to be here.
Yeah, sounds like a good two-way learning experience for everybody. One of the questions that come up in the chat while you were talking has to do with mental health. And do you have any advice for how to take care of your mental health when trying to maybe sort through the process while being in a foreign country? And I'm sure you've got family back home and things to deal with. Advice
Yeah,
for mental health.
so the first thing I can tell you about mental health, make a list and set your goals and work towards that. Because I'm not saying that it wasn't great, because it was 6 years as an intern, and that's a big burnout. So don't do that. Set your goals, work through that, find different things to do. Regarding being alone in the US, which I am right now, it is very challenging. My husband, my cats, and my horse are in Brazil, and my family, part of my family is there too. So, what I do, I know it sounds crazy, but I have become friends with some of the clients, and sometimes I go to their farm and spend time with them, or I go to the hospital and I see cases during the day, which helps me a lot. I ride with the vets from the other clinics, but besides of horses, I try to go to the gym and to go for walks with my dog. We have a bunch of parks around here. They have beautiful sunsets. I like doing that. Going out with friends for dinner once a week or twice a month. I just started salsa dancing classes, so that's been very helpful.
Those are
And
all good wellness tips and things that distract you and
yeah.
keep you feeling
Yeah,
good.
doing stuff around the house helps too. Uh, drink water and eating good food also helps with mental health. Uh, and also, if you feel that you really need help and that you cannot get through on your own, do not hesitate to look for a professional. Go to the doctor, say, I need help, and listen to them. I did need help, and I do have a psychologist and a social worker that I go sometimes, because sometimes we just need to talk, and they are there to guide us through our crisis. And if you need a time off, just, I don't know, talk to your boss and say, hey, today I'm not feeling good. I'm on the edge. Is it possible that I go home early and just crash in the couch?
Yeah, that's good advice. I appreciate you sharing all that with us. Thank you for sharing your success story.
Yeah.
It's not finished yet. We're going to wait for the finale. So
Okay.
keep that. So we're going to move.
Well, let me jump in just for a second with two things. One, a question specifically to Dr. Silva in the chat. And y'all, let me remind you, please, if you would put your questions to the panelists in the Q&A box rather than the chat. But someone asked, Amanda, did you start your green card process before having your license in the U.S.?
No, I've had the green card for 6 years, and I just started my license processing this year. I am currently waiting for my BCSE test, which I'll take this month in November. And yeah, I got my green card way before the license, but then I went back to Brazil, and while I was in Brazil, I was not too worried about this. So it was just when I came back to the US to work at NC State that I started to work on my license again.
And then you're able to work in NC State under the umbrella of the university.
Yes, the only place we can work at, they give us the faculty license, so the only place we can work without the vet license being validated by the ECFVG is under the university's wings.
And that's one of the questions in the Q&A. So thanks for answering.
Yeah. You can work as an intern. They say as an intern on private practice, but from my experience, that's not actually what we are. We are more techs than anything. And I think they are changing the titles now to be more realistic because we can't really be interns if we don't have the vet license validated here.
I think that's a lot of the challenge is trying to figure out what you can do and where you can do it until you get the license.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing. I'm sure we'll have some more
course.
questions for you at the end. So now I'd like to introduce Dr. Santiago Rodriguez. He's from Colombia. He's currently a large animal intern at Iowa State, and we'd love to hear your story and see how it compares to Dr. Silva and your tips and words of wisdom for our group tonight. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Dr. Martinez, for the introduction. So, hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here to share my experience and my success so far. I know there's a lot ahead that needs to be done, but so far we're doing good. So, starting off with me, again, my name is Santiago Rodriguez. I am from Colombia. I graduated from the University of Tolima. I've seen that there are a couple of Colombians in the chat, so that's really exciting. I came to the US roughly 5-6 years ago. I started doing an externship at an equine practice in Ocala, Florida. I was there for 3 months, and then they offered me a job as an intern, but it was more like Amanda said, it was more like a tech job. So I was there for maybe 1-2 years, and then I applied for an internship at an equine hospital. Also in Ocala, Peterson Smith Equine Hospital. I was there for another year. Right after I finished my internship at Peterson Smith, I realized that I needed to work on my license, right? So right after I finished that internship, I fully committed to becoming a licensed veterinarian in the US. So that's when I decided to start working as a small animal vet tech at the University of Florida. I was there for almost 2 years, and I was working at Peterson Smith as well, along with my vet tech job. So pretty much I was having 2 jobs at the time. And like I said, I was there for 2 years. I decided to enroll in the ECFVG program. I completed all of the steps that were required, and I got licensed, or I finished the ECFVG program last year in November, so it's going to be a year next month. And right after that, I took my NAVLE on the fall of 2023, and I passed it the first time. So right after that, I was able to obtain my Florida license, and I applied through the matching program for equine surgery residencies. Unfortunately, I didn't match, but I got the opportunity to work here at Iowa State University, and I'm currently doing a large animal internship. As far as the questions that we were asked before, path to success, I do think that it's very important to make a plan, right? Set specific and realistic goals, right? Based on what you want to do and how you want to do it. This process, the ECFVG process, is not easy. Like Amanda said, it's not cheap either. So you gotta set specific goals for short, mid, and long term. Going step by step is very important. Go at your own pace. I do think that not everybody does the process the same way. So just go, make a plan, go step by step, and do it at your own pace. Don't feel like you have to rush. Don't feel like you have to complete this as soon as possible, because sometimes it just takes time. Very important to, before you start the process, to contact your university so you can try to get your transcripts and everything sorted out before you start the program, or at least when you start the program. So, having that communication with your university is very, very important. Going about the second step, which is the English test, I do think that maybe taking your TOEFL or your IELTS or whatever the exams that are required for the ECFVG or by the ECFVG is also very important. So just prepare for that. By the time I took that exam, I think I had a pretty good English level. However, I failed the first time. So I had to really focus and prepare for that. It's an older test, so it requires time and requires effort. In regards of things that I wish I knew before I started with the program, was that one of the main things is that I wish I knew the CPE, which is the Clinical and Proficient Examination, which is the last step of the ECFVG program. Was not something that I was going to be able to schedule right away after I completed the first 3 steps. Unfortunately, has limited seats and the spots apparently, and this is something that I know for a fact from older people that took the exam with me, is that they only open the spots during certain months of the year. Specifically between August through October, that's when they open all of the spots for the whole year, for the next year, the upcoming year. So I wish I knew that, because if not, I wouldn't have, spend so much time just waiting for it and stressing out and, getting anxious about it. And it's just that, the process per se, again, is very difficult. And sometimes it gets very, very stressful and frustrating when you cannot go further into your examination when the program doesn't open the spots. So
how long did you have to wait? That's one of the questions in the chat, is they've been waiting for a while. Do you know when it's going to open? How do you get?
Yeah, so I was very lucky. I waited for roughly 6 to 7 months, after the completion of the third step, which is the VCSE. I waited for 6 or 7 months, and I said I was lucky because I was at work really early in the morning, and I am a part of a Facebook group that helps ECFVG people that want to take the exam. They were posting on the group chat by that time, and they were saying, hey, go to the AVMA webpage. There are opening spots right now for the exam. So it was just, I don't know, it was coincidental, and I was very lucky that I could get a spot. And thankfully, I also had the money, because that's the other big challenge. It's a very expensive test, and in order for you to reserve your spot, you got to put down $1,000 right off the bat. So that makes it a little challenging, especially if you don't have the money. And also, yes, you put down $1,000 deposit, and they have you pay the rest of the money with a money order within 60 days prior to the exam. And the whole cost of the fourth step of the exam is roughly almost $8,000. So I had to have pretty much $7,000 in my bank account to present that exam right away. So I wish I knew that. I wish I knew it was going to take some time, because again, it's a process, and you just got to go with it. You got to be patient, and again, set realistic and specific goals. That helps a lot. And set dates, deadlines for your goals. So if you wanna, start a process, let's say, for like to do the first step, let's say, I want to prepare, or the second step, I want to prepare for 2 months in order to, pass the exam. Just do that, like focus on that. Regarding of the biggest challenges, I would say, at least for me too, the first one was working as a small animal vet tech. I don't enjoy working with small animals that much. And obviously, when I presented the exam, which was last year, I was like 4 years out of school. So, like all of that knowledge was not very fresh in my brain. So I had to start over like from ground zero. And, like prior to doing that tech job, I was an intern at a hospital. So, like coming from an internship where I was like treated as a doctor, stepping down to the point that I was, a small animal vet tech, it was a little challenging, and, like reality hit me hard, because I mean, I was not a doctor, at least a licensed doctor in the US. So basically my opinion wasn't that important, when it came to, like give an opinion about cases or treating animals, because, like legally I was not able to do so. The second biggest challenge was the money. Me personally, I worked 2 jobs for almost 2 years, and like I was very consistent with not going out or having dinner with friends, trying to get that money as quick as possible, because that was my goal. Like I set that goal for myself, but like I said, like those goals have to be adjusted, or adjusted to yourself. Like if you don't have the money right away, then you can get a loan, or you can work and get it done at some point, but it doesn't necessarily have to be right away. So just, again, go at your own pace, and commit to it, be constant, and like know that you're gonna face some challenges, know that you're gonna have to private yourself from doing certain stuff, but at the end it's gonna be worth it. It's a long path, but it's really rewarding when you get to the point that you have your license and you can apply to any license in the States. So that's really, really rewarding.
What was the name of the Facebook group? There's been a couple questions.
I don't remember on the top of my head, but I can look it up in a second. And I
Look
can
it
put
up.
it
You
on
might
the...
just type it into the chat there.
Yeah, I can post the link in a second. I just have to look it up. I don't have the Facebook app on my phone, so I have to pull it up on my computer, but I will do that in a second. And
then what about, how was your process through the green card visa experience, or how did you navigate that challenge?
So fortunately, I didn't have to go through that process, because my father is a US citizen. So I got my citizenship when I was 13 years old. So fortunately for me, I didn't have to go through the, like the green card visa processes. So I'm not fully aware of that. I know some other participants have gone through that process, and can like help you out a little bit more with that information.
But you still had to conquer the language difference.
Yeah. That was another challenge. Like learning English is very important as well. I like Amanda said, I thought I knew some English, but when I came here, I was very lost, very, very lost.
Well, great. That's a good story, and I think you're on the right track, and I'm hoping you're going to get to that equine surgery position.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. It's a good goal, and you've got a good plan. I think your tips of having a good plan, sticking to it, being judicious with your time, and I think those are all good tips. Thank you for sharing your story tonight.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see if I can move on. Here we go. So up next, we've got Dr. Javier Quesada. He's from Spain and currently an internal medicine resident at NC State. Glad you're here tonight. We'd love to hear your story. How'd you get started into horses? What brought you to the United States?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Javi. I'm a little bit about me. I'm from the Canary Islands in Spain. I ended up studying in Valencia in mainland Spain, and then started kind of my journey with Theoria, which was the part that kind of brought me towards horses. So I did 2 years of the Theoria residency in Vienna in Austria, which ended up bringing me to Dubai and worked with camel reproduction there. After that, I kind of like move on and decided that the part that I enjoyed the most on that area was kind of like the medical care and the emergency from that, plus the neonates, which was my favorite thing to do. So after that, I decided to move to the UK and did a rotational internship there at the University of Liverpool. And then after that, I, continue with the desire of doing a little bit more of intensive care and neonatology. Um, and then started looking into going to the USA because I had done a couple of externships there, and the majority of the residencies that I was looking into were the ones that had a heavy load of folds or more, at least than in the European ones. So when I started looking into coming to the USA, it was kind of challenging for various reasons. First, like the one that some my colleagues have said before is economical, and then second, depending on what you're looking into doing in terms of private practice, academia, residencies, internships, it is very variable how much support you will get from the institutions to get a visa. For me, for example, because I knew I wanted to do a residency at that time, the main challenge was that there were not a lot of options for me, even if there were a lot of institutions all offering the residency. I had only the chance to apply to three of them because at that time, none of the others were supporting visa applications. But in the other hand, it was quite useful because once I got the residency, since I came through a university institution, they did the whole process for me, and I came here with a H-1B visa, which is dual citizenship or a dual intention, sorry, visa, which kind of allows you to apply for a green card after 6 years on the visa. Um, but again, I think, like the main thing that helped me was again the university applying for it because they paid for the majority of the costs that the visa entail at that time, which can be very daunting for when you don't have that acquisition and that money to pay that at that time. Some of the things that I did have to do on my own and pay for myself was kind of like things that entail the convalidation of my title, since in Spain and some other countries in the European Union, you don't get accredited with a DVM title after you finish. So you have to go through a process that there's certain companies in the US that kind of study your degree and study or all what you did before, and they kind of determine if you're granted the DVM title or not to come to the US. And thankfully, it was granted to me, so I could come here and and practice at NC State. I think again, one of the good things of coming through a university setting is that a lot of the times, or in some of the states, they have the opportunity, like Dr. Silva was saying before, to use only university license, which again, not all the universities have, or not all states have. But fortunately, for example, North Carolina has it. So I'm allowed to practice here without going away from the university, but I'm allowed to be a full veterinarian within the university perimeters. And I'm allowed to teach the students, I'm allowed to do my job, I'm allowed to kind of sort out my cases and discuss the cases with referring veterinarians and the owners, so I wouldn't have any other problems unless I'm working outside of the university, which would be kind of the next steps moving forward from this residency. So I think one of the main things that I've encountered now that I'm on my third year, is that again, I'm faced with the fact that there is a lack of a place where you can find all the information together of licensing depending on the state and so on. And that can be a little bit challenging because it's like, well, like you're finishing or you're trying to come, and it's like you have to kind of contact every state that you would be interested working at, and you have to figure out what would be a way to kind of work there right now. And it's like still kind of something that I regret maybe now. I didn't know at that time that I wanted to move to the US that clearly and work here. But now, for example, in my third year, like I'm regretting not having started earlier the process for the ECVFG, just because like now my next steps, like I have to kind of decide within a university setting, just because it is a lot easier to kind of get a job and like be able to practice without anything else. Because like fortunately, I guess like I do potentially want to do another residency. I would love to do an ophthalmology residency now. So I think in I have, like two points again here, which is the point of it is good because there's universities that will apply, I will kind of back up your visa application. And right now I'm already on the H-1B, which you can extend up to 6 years. But on the other hand, I'm faced again with, because I don't have the ECVFG already completed, I cannot apply to a lot of the residencies because a lot of them are private practice, or even in some states, I cannot even apply at the university because of that. So I think, like one of the tips that I would give is like, if I wouldn't have known that I wanted to do this prior to coming here, so years ago when I was in vet school or trying to figure out what I was going to do, if that was kind of my goal, I would have loved to start this process before coming here, or before when I had a little bit more economical means than here as a resident. Because, one of the things that everybody that, is going to go through this process going to have to face is they're going to have to be very patient, because again, like my colleagues have discussed before, there's a lot of timelines, and you never know exactly when those timelines are going to come. And as well, like, within this group that is more related to equine practice, the practical exam for the ECVFG, like, it's going to be very small animal heavy. So it's like there's a lot of things that we're going to have to practice even more, like if you haven't just come out of vet school and you've been working for a couple of years in in large animal as well. So patient is going to be, a key spot there for everyone trying to do this, because again, like it's going to be very economically heavy depending on what, in what capacity you're here. But for example, for me as a resident, like my economical means are not the biggest to kind of support myself, plus going through the ECVFG, plus going through other visa application processes. And again, like depending on if you're gonna be kind of backed up by an institution for the visas, some of them will also pay for the visa applications, but some of them won't. So like some of them will kind of do the application, but you would be expected to pay all the fees for that. So it is another plus on what you have to pay, plus the part of the ECVFG, which at the end of the day, it's almost or around $10,000 in total to do the whole process. So it's quite a bit of money for everyone. And even more like kind of when you're like coming out of vet school and kind of discovering where you want to go and what you want to do. But I think one of the key things that I would back up as well from Dr. Silva is the mentorship and the kind of networking, because at the end of the day, the equine community and in general veterinary medicine, but the equine community is smaller, and everybody knows someone in that circle, which will help you get somewhere or get, this job, or try to help you this and try to help you there. And for me, it's always been like very helpful, like and I think encouraging to hear other people that has gone through this process when you're like feeling all alone and feel all frustrated and feeling overwhelmed because you have to deal with, you have to work a lot, and you're here alone, and like they were saying, and you don't have your your support network, like your family, your friends, or anything. You're here alone, dealing with everything, dealing with the lack of money, dealing with the lack of people, dealing with the waiting times, and dealing with the, will I have to go back if I don't get the visa right now, or things like that. So it is heavy on your mind. So it's like they were saying before, I think, it is very important as well to kind of take care of yourself. And I think, a lot of us, and again, like me, like Dr. Silva, like I have here, like, because we work at a university, like, for example, like we have the resources to, see a psychologist or a mentor like every week, which I utilize very much, because like it helps when like you're going through all these things on your own. Like she was saying, to kind of verbalize everything and make sure that, like you hear yourself talk more than, like out loud, and somebody else hears you and stops your thought processes sometimes, because it can be a lot. But again, like if it's something that it is your goal and you really want to work in the US, which is a great place to work, because at least in comparison with certain places in Europe and so on, like there is a big advantage in terms of how good veterinary medicine can be practiced here, and how willing a lot of the owners are to do a lot of procedures that, for example, at least for me, in my experience, like in Spain, for example, like people is not willing to do, and so on. So I think it can be a very rewarding job. It's just the process can be a little bit daunting. But again, like surround yourself with people that have done this, surround yourself with people that is positive and that is going to help you through all of this. And at the end of the day, again, a lot of patience and resilience. And I think
That's all really good advice. Really good advice. I think we've been answering some of the questions that were in the chat, and I don't think there's been too much through the Q&A. So, Dr. Quesada, I appreciate your time and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Now we move on to Dr. Chris Elliott. He hails from Australia and is currently a board certified specialist in equine sports med at Palm Beach Equine in Florida. He just hopped on in the nick of time, and he's going to share his perspective from down under. Dr. Elliott, thanks for joining us.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, super. Hi, everyone. Yes, Chris Elliott here. G'day from Australia. Obviously, I'm here in the US now. So yes, Australian graduate, University of Queensland back in 2007. Did all my qualifications and everything in Australia, including my internships and residencies. So my journey started to the US in 2020. So after I'd already been 13 years qualified. So a little different than a lot of other people's experiences. So my visa pathway was through my now wife. She's an American dressage trainer. Even in that situation, the pathway took at least 2 years to get resolved. Nothing happens quickly in American immigration. And depending on who the next United States of America president will be, there might even be longer delays on immigration. So I think probably one of the biggest things that I can say to everyone is nothing happens quickly. You need to be prepared, but be patient. So my pathway through the licensure, very much my experience and my advice here tonight is private practice, targeted at those veterinarians out there in the rest of the world who are looking to enter into private practice within the United States. It's a very different system than the university teaching hospitals. And also my experience and my advice here is targeted at those qualified, experienced veterinarians who already have established careers in their home countries and then are looking to take the big leap to come to the United States and then establish a career there. And then also, unlike some of the other speakers tonight, I did all of my preparation at home, so from outside of the United States. And I did not come to the United States until I'd passed all the exams and was fully approved. And so for those listening, I don't know your demographics, but potentially with this being recorded as well, very much also my experience is talking to those English speakers. So those English speakers, we have an advantage because we come through that first stage very simply. And then also those veterinarians coming from, England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and those Northern European countries, Germany, the Netherlands, Denmark, Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, Finland. I want to reassure all of you who are listening that your veterinary schools are outstanding and your education will allow you to come here very easily. A lot of those veterinary schools that aren't currently AVMA accredited are not accredited through technicalities, not because the United States doesn't think that your curriculum is good enough. I argue at some points it's even better than some of the American curriculums, but it's often through a lack of advanced facilities. I know this from personal experience because I was the student representative when the AVMA came to consider accrediting my veterinary school when I was there at the University of Queensland, and I know that the reason why we weren't accredited was that we didn't have an on-site MRI. And so in terms of facilities, that's often lacking, but your education is still outstanding. So I just want to reassure everyone who's listening that if you are coming particularly from those English-speaking countries, the state of your education is of extreme high quality. And I can reassure all of you that if you are thinking of coming to the United States, the exam process is easy. It is time-consuming and complicated, but it is not rocket science. You are all educated in an extremely good way. You just need to go back to what you were taught in final year vet school, and you will get through the examination process quite easily. Like some of the others have said tonight, do remember that you don't need to be licensed if you're considering coming to the United States for internships and residencies. If you're wanting an American residency, I would tell you not to waste your time on the licensing process unless you're considering staying here, which truthfully, the vast majority of international residents don't consider staying. So just bear that in mind. Things that I might have wished I'd known before are my biggest challenges. It is time consuming. The fastest I know anyone that's ever gone through this process is 18 months. Mine took 2 years. I would say that budget yourself 2 years at a minimum. It's frustrating, the time consumption, and the fact that you can't just waltz through every stage back to back. But patience will pay off eventually. Also, another challenge is understanding that each of the state licenses are different. This is the United States of America, and when you come from outside the United States, understanding states' rights and their own kind of unique ways of doing things is foreign. But once you get here, you see that it's extraordinarily important. For example, for me, the state of New York simply didn't believe that I was able to become a veterinarian after 5 years of university. Us in the Commonwealth, we all still have the possibility of doing veterinary school straight from high school and doing it in 5 years. It took me 9 months to convince the state of New York that I was actually a veterinarian. So some of those little things can be quite complicated. And then even along the lines of, if you are doing this process from outside the United States, which I think most people usually are, you might not be able to start some of your state licensing until you've got, say, something like a social security number. But you can't get a social security number until you get a visa, and you can't get a visa until you can prove that you're a veterinarian. So, and then people aren't going to give you a job unless you've got a license. So it can sometimes be a little bit of a self-perpetuating circle. But just planning ahead for these type of things and understanding that nothing happens quickly. Biggest tip is once you start, don't stop. I have experienced and seen a large number of young veterinarians come into the United States, start the process and never finish it. It is difficult, it is time consuming, it is challenging. But once you stop the process of trying to get through these exams, I would say that more often than not, you are just going to stop and fail. Once you start, commit and continue going through it. A very practical thing for getting through the exam. I'm certainly not paid to promote these guys, but the full service on Zuku Review is outstanding. If you are coming from an English-speaking country, it's all you need to study. I studied nothing but the full service Zuku Review online program, did nothing more and passed with flying colours. In terms of your being prepared for your practical exam, read the exam outline documentation in detail, thoroughly, many times before you start, and target your skill acquisition specifically to the exam. There's no need to go and learn skills that aren't going to be directly examined. Having said that, when the exam document says one specific thing that you must do, you must learn how to do that. Gain your experience early. As soon as you decide that you're committing to this process and as soon as you put money down for the process, start getting your practical experience, start getting your dog spays under your belt, start getting your dog anesthesia skills, start getting your dog radiology, go back and start doing some of your cattle medicine, go start preg testing cattle again. You all learned that at veterinary school, you all passed veterinary school. I promise you, after you do it a few times, even if you've just been a horse vet for, like me, 13, 17 years before I start the process, it will all come back to you, I promise. We all graduated from veterinary schools. We all know that 90% of our classmates went into small animal medicine. I would hope at least one of those is still your friend. Just ring up your small animal friends and go hang out with them. Go work in their clinics. Go hang out. If you spend a couple of hours each day on your theory, 1 or 2 hours, and then maybe you're spending half a day or a day every week or every other week gaining your practice skills, you will pass this exam with flying colours. It is just a simple read what you need to learn, go learn it, and then go put it into practice. It will take you time, but even if you haven't touched a dog since veterinary school, if you've been educated through a high-quality veterinary school, you will have all that knowledge come back easily, I promise you. Experienced veterinarians in the United States are in great need. Experienced veterinarians from English-speaking countries and from Europe will have their pick of jobs and will be welcomed with open arms by both the veterinary clinics and the clients. Moving to the United States is a huge culture shock. Don't undertake it without being forewarned. But I can tell you that it is very much worthwhile and very rewarding in terms of the veterinary medicine that you can practice. It's extraordinarily different than a lot of you will have experienced, particularly if you're an experienced veterinarian with an established career. You will need to somewhat reinvent yourself or stand firm on your beliefs at times. But it is very achievable. All of this is very achievable. I know I was offered many jobs in the United States for many years prior to actually making the jump. And I always said, no, that's too hard. Going through the process, yes, it is challenging and time consuming, but you can do it.
Chris, one of the questions asked how you got through the small animal section.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think maybe you touched on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just rang up my mates and I just hung out with them. I did dog anesthesia from my friends' clinics. They let me do the spays. So I think I did about 25 spays myself after kind of like scrubbing in and assisting after a few. And then probably at least 50 dog anesthesias. You know, if you put a catheter in a wiggly dog 50 times, you can get through the exam. I know I was fortunate coming from a university that taught preg testing very well in cattle. I preg tested over 1,000 cattle in veterinary school. So a day with one of my cattle vet friends, preg testing 200-300 cows, got me back into it, no problems. I did that like the day before I flew out for the practical. It's just time. You just need to call up your small animal friends and just say, hey, let me do space.
And then was there, as you kind of came over on your own, how did you have some mentors help you?
No.
Or are you winging it on your own?
Completely on my own. But everything is written down. It's wonderful that AAEP has now put it all in the right spot, but everything is on the internet and everything you need to know is clearly in the ECFVG PAVE documents. They're complicated and at times challenging to read, but it's all there. They tell you exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing your story. I didn't know you were married to a dressage trainer.
Yes. It's
good job security.
Yeah. So
I think we've had some questions come through the Q&A, and I think we've kind of tackled most of those. One of those that's right there on top still is, does anyone know of people that have gotten a temporary permit or a temporary license they could work before they completed the ECFVG outside of maybe the university setting?
I don't think that's possible outside the university. And I tried.
I know a couple of people here in North Carolina, apparently, and I to the the veterinary institution here in North Carolina, and apparently if you're have an active license somewhere else, like for example in this case one was from the UK and the other one from Spain, and they had active licenses there, you can work, I don't remember exactly the amount, but it was like either 2 to 4 months per year in the state of North Carolina in private practice. And like I have a friend that is actually doing it right now. Like I know this for a fact.
But does he work as a doctor without a supervision? Or
she like on those 4 months or those 2 to 4 months, like I don't remember exactly how long it was per year. You can work as a normal veterinarian here, and she works in private practice in small animals, but she works in private practice.
Dr. Elliott, what was the name of the review program you recommended?
Zuku Review. It's a online education portal that gives you a specific education training for the BCSE initially exam, and then you can then pay for the NAVLE prep. So it's an online program that gives you lectures, gives you notes, gives you hundreds and hundreds of practice exams, and then gives you online links to a couple other things. But that's all I studied. And then a reminder to everyone listening is that remember that this is 100% multi-choice in terms of the BCSE Basic Clinical Science exam and then the NAVLE. There are skills to pass multi-choice exams. Just Google them. There are tactics, there are skills, there are techniques. It's very well documented in education, kind of research papers, and in psychology research papers on how to optimize your skills in which you pass multi-choice exams. For example, there are multiple tactics, but the particular tactic I used allowed me to pass the exams in the top quartile, and I think they give you 6 hours for the NAVLE, and I completed it in 1 hour and 45 minutes.
Impressive.
Well,
one of the questions I'm in the chat for the group. Do you guys know of anyone who has been through the PAVE pathway? Seems everybody's more familiar with the ECFVG. I don't think anybody has. It's probably the less common of the two pathways. When we, as our task force kind of looked at the stats for each different group, the ECFVG, I think, had about 3 times as many people complete that as the PAVE.
Santiago talked about our university being on the ECFVG AVMA list. That takes a long time and a lot of effort. Like, you need to keep, at least on my experience, I needed to keep emailing them, and I needed to speak with the people at the university 2-3 times a week to make it happen, and it took about 3 months. So just make sure that you do that before you try to start ECFVG, because without that, you can't. Your school needs to be on the list.
Yeah, so I'll just ask everybody that's all our guests tonight, if you have any more questions, put them in the chat and we'll address them as I kind of go through the last couple slides as we wrap up, sharing just some more information with you from our task force. We're excited tonight. Part of the outcome of our task force and one of our early initiatives that we got through the AAEP Foundation is the opportunity to offer 3 scholarships or 3 grants, totaling $2,500 each. And we're going to try to give out at AAEP this year. These are grants that are designated to kind of help offset the cost and the testing fees through the ECFVG and the NAVLE portion. So the requirements are that you must have graduated from a non-accredited foreign vet school, have a work visa, or be in the United States legally. You must have passed the ECFVG, the PAVE, or the NAVLE, maybe not all at once, but you're in some portion of the process is completed. So you're well on your way through that, so that the money goes to testing costs. And then you must be kind of in pursuing equine-oriented employment and supported by an AAEP member here in the States. And we just are going to ask for a CV and a cover letter and 2 member references. We're going to post the link in the chat. Karen's putting the link in the chat. If you click on that, it'll take your computer right to the website. I'm sorry, this one QR code is glitched and doesn't open the website properly, at least not on a phone. So we're excited about that. The deadline to apply for this year is December 1st, and we're going to award those at AAEP in Orlando. So kudos to my task force for working on that and getting that out. And we thank the foundation for their support of our foreign veterinary graduates. One more, just quickly, a question that's in the chat. Did any of you guys use the CPE boot camps?
I did not.
Mm-mm.
Didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah, they've come up in a couple of our discussions, but I think they're offered through one of the university programs. It sounds like they're a good resource, just another opportunity to get the practical experience to kind of refresh that knowledge in the other species. So if you don't have a best friend that you can go do spays with, look into those. I think you can find those online, like Chris said.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're out of the country. I guess they're in Costa Rica, if I'm not mistaken, and they're fairly expensive. They're like $4,000 for the whole program.
Yeah, I think there's 1 or 2 put on by some universities in the States.
Oh, I was not aware of that.
Yeah, I just heard about the Costa Rica one. I have a friend that went, and it's very expensive.
But you get to go to Costa Rica.
Yeah, to work for free.
Again, just one more time, here's the link to our website resources that we hope to keep adding to in the future. What's next for our task force? We are going to plan on some type of webinar in the spring. Maybe we'll address ECFVG and PAVE challenges. We're going to keep working on some website resources. We're working on some documents to give some state-by-state information and some links and information on licensure and stuff in each state, and hopefully put that all in one place on our website. We've talked a lot about the challenges of the financial aspects of the process, and we may work on some documents to kind of summarize that or put that in one document so people can see what's really involved and what it can potentially cost. We are working on a mentor site linking through our page where people can sign up to help mentor future Foreign Vet graduates. If you're interested in being one or mentoring someone, please email me at that link below. Then our task force will be at the International Members Breakfast and the International Members Reception in Orlando. You can scan this link or go to the AAEP website, the convention website, and click on the meeting and events for that schedule. And again, thank you everybody for joining us tonight and listening to our Pathways to Success. Thank you to my panelists, Dr. Elliott, Dr. Quesada, Dr. Rodriguez, and Dr. Silva. You guys were great. Thanks for sharing your information. And shout out to our task force. They're on in the background and they've been working hard on this. So we appreciate everybody's help. Thank you, Karen and the AAEP, for giving us this opportunity tonight. Does anybody have any last words of advice? If not, we will see you all at the next webinar.
I have last words. I always get the last words because then I have to hang up on everyone. I did put my email address in the chat. If you have questions for our panelists, feel free to send those to me and I'll pass them along. But what I always do is say that that's good for about a week. I'm not going to keep my panelists on the hook forever. But for about the next week, if you have questions for them, feel free to send them to me, kpouts@aaep.org, and I will send them on. So, yeah, this is such an important subject and so challenging that I'm very grateful that our panel came on and helped out tonight. And I look forward to another webinar in the spring. Cool. Let me take a moment just to thank specifically our panel. Thank you to Dr. Chris Elliott, Javier Pérez Quesada, Santiago Rodriguez, and I'm going to get messed up here. I was trying so hard to get through these names. I'm so sorry. Amanda Chitero Silva. And of course, thank you, Dr. Ernie Martinez, for moderating this session. Thank you to the task force. We're so happy that this is something that we are trying to help with. Thank you to my man behind the scenes, Kevin Hinchman, for standing by in case we had any trouble, which we didn't. Yay us. And again, I'll send you an email in the morning, most likely, with a link to this recording on demand, and feel free to share it with friends. We are not putting this particular recording behind a member paywall. So it will be available to everyone. And also I'll include a link to the previous FVG webinar that we did so that you can have all kinds of information.
And also include a link to the scholarship page.
Yes, okay, absolutely. And if you scroll quickly up the chat, you'll see links to those as well. But yes, thank you, Dr. Martinez, for reminding me. I'll get links to all of those things in the description in the YouTube video. Okay, so here's our last chance for everyone to wave goodbye. I'm seeing lots of thank yous from our attendees. And this is when I very crassly just hang up on everybody because there's no good way to do this. So good night. And I'm going to end this in 3, 2, 1.
Bye.
Bye.